Wow. What the? Oh. Oh, eso digo yo. No cantamos mata que no
Oh, ano mo serious ang borian? Oh, katinggal sa
Good afternoon.
Ano kini ako join ang go be.
Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me? Can I ask everyone to mute themselves, please? Thank you. All right. Anyways, good day. I've been so sorry that I started so late. I don't know, this thing's been loading. I think my network's a bit, might be the weather. Anyways, I've got a maximum capacity of, I think, 100 participants. And I know this class is over 300. We'll see how many people joins. Those that don't join, like you've heard, the session is being recorded, so I'll just share it on, I'll share the link on LMS. And then while we're on LMS, I hope you have started logging onto LMS to complete your test. It's a very easy multiple choice and monkey puzzle test. A lot of the things is actually general knowledge. So you should not struggle with the test. I do not believe so. Right. Anyway, while I'm trying to upload or share my screen, I'll just quickly go through a recap. Sorry, you must just be patient. I don't know what's wrong with this laptop, or if it's my network, but everything's just taking long. Okay, so quickly just to recap, we haven't had lesson in a long time because we were busy. It was midterm break, and we had before that we had, I think, 2 weeks, if not 3. We only had presentations, so which means your CA1 is complete. And then obviously if you finish your test, the test will close, I think it's tomorrow at 6 a.m. if I'm not mistaken. So please make sure that you go online and you complete it. It's only out of 25 marks, and it's 45 minutes that you get to complete it. So and you only have 1 attempt. So please make sure when you go online that you have a good connection, so that you can complete your test successfully. Sometimes if you don't have a good connection and you start the test, even if you answer the first or second question and your network cuts, then it's automatically gonna submit like that. All right. Obviously, I'll be able to see how long you were online, and then it would make sense if, I mean, I don't know, if you were online for 2, 3, 4, or 5 minutes, and then it's submitted, then I would know it was a network problem. Very important when you have network issues or something is wrong. So also it's very helpful to take a screenshot either from your phone or your laptop. If you don't know how to take a screenshot, just Google it, and then you can always send that to me as evidence so that I can reopen the test or open a new test for you so that you can complete it. All right. Okay, so if I go through the course outline, we've pretty much completed the first section, which is introduction to physical education that we now know, and then the second one is introduction to the physical modalities. If I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've already gone over aerobic and anaerobic systems. So what I mentioned there was that it's important to define it and then also give examples of it. Sorry, can we just mute your microphone, please? Can you mute your microphone? Okay, so we did aerobic, anaerobic. We remember we said aerobic is when it's oxygen present, so your body needs to continuously continuously get oxygen within the bloodstream in order to complete activities. These are usually prolonged activities, like a middle distance runner or a long distance runner, or even when you play soccer, rugby, even netball. It's partially aerobic and it's partially anaerobic. Okay, because a lot of it's a continuous activity that takes place for about an hour, and usually when an activity is prolonged, it would require a lot of oxygen, so making it an aerobic activity. So just very important for that is you need to define it, and then a lot of the times in the exams and tests, you need to be able to give examples of activities, which would be aerobic, and then anaerobic exactly the same. Define, give examples of activity. With anaerobic activities, these are short bursts of activity or physical activity, and then the most common example for this would be your 100-meter sprinter, but it's also involved in soccer, rugby, in team sports like that, because every now and then you need to speed up and run really quickly, be explosive, jump for a ball, tackle someone, etc., etc. So what that means is it also requires readily available energy in your muscles in order to do quick bursts of activities. And then we define muscular strength and endurance, same as aerobic and anaerobic. We need to list examples of activities that would increase your muscular strength. Also, like I said, I think last time I mentioned we'll physically do, maybe we'll have 1 week where we'll do practicals where we actually do some muscular strength exercises compared to endurance activities as well. So we must be able to define what muscular strength is and muscular endurance is. And then also with that, we need to state its importance, and then also look at activities where you do not need equipment in order to increase those two modalities. All right. A lot of the times we might go to schools, we're not going to have a gym. We're not in private schools, so we won't have access to a gym setup with equipment. So then what other activities can you do, which is freestanding?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the next modality is cardiovascular. Is cardiovascular fitness. So we already know cardiovascular, that has to do with our heart. So our ability to transport blood or oxygen within the body. So we must be able to define it, list types of cardiovascular fitness or exercise or activities. That is pretty simple because it's when you look at endurance activities, they are pretty much the same as cardiovascular activity. So endurance increases our cardiovascular fitness. All right, and then we know there's a lot of benefits that go along with cardiovascular. Obviously, it prevents chronic illnesses. It can prevent diseases. It makes you more healthier. It gives you more energy to do your daily tasks. So there's quite a range of benefits which is attached to that. And then your activities for cardiovascular, it's going to be similar to your endurance or your aerobic activities. So slow jogging, doing long distance activities or prolonged activities. This will pretty much increase our heart's ability to transport blood within the water. What did I just say? Water, because it's raining in the blood. Okay. I'm still waiting for my slide to open. But anyways, I will continue. Okay, so the next point that I want to cover is also an important one. It's one of the modalities for physical activity, and that is flexibility. All right, so mute a few people here. All right. Okay, so what is flexibility? So when we look at flexibility, obviously this is important because it pretty much stimulates, or it serves as a base to general fitness and health. All right, so you can become muscular. You can have like a lot of muscular strength, endurance, whatever the case might be. But if you are not flexible, then you raise the risk of becoming injured. All right, and then being flexible, it helps the way that we move more effectively and more efficiently. So it's very important. And if you want to define flexibility, that is pretty much the range of movement that is allowed around any joint or major joint. Okay, so it's the gracious, you can call it, it's a gracious movement around a major joint. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So some of us, where you are, if you swing your arms, or you try and pull or you try and extend your arms backwards, like posteriorly, and try and touch your hands behind your back. If that's something that's difficult, obviously you have a lessened range of movement in your shoulder joint. Okay, so the more we can move, the more the range of movement in that joint, obviously the more flexible we are. All right, so that is how you would define it. And then continuing, when we look at flexibility, it's very important to know how you become flexible. All right, so what would you say makes a person flexible? Quickly, just 1 minute. If there's someone that can answer that, you can unmute yourself and then just tell me what do you think makes you flexible?
It is probably when you exercise most frequently.
More frequent exercises, yes, that's 100% correct. Okay, so just exercising in general, the reason why it increases your flexibility is because when you are active, right, your body heats up. As soon as your body heats up, obviously your muscles heats up. So as soon as your muscles heats up, it becomes more elastic, which means it allows for a longer stretch. So it elongates, which obviously makes you a bit more flexible. So the more you exercise, the more you can become flexible. So it has an influence on that. But then you also have other type of activities that you can use to try and increase or enhance your flexibility even more. So that's good. Exercising is definitely one. When we look at other things that influences exercise, you said exercising. So any other type of physical activity like running, which is exercising, dancing, for instance, it has a large range of movements, you know, when we are dancing. So that would increase your flexibility. Doing activities whereby we almost like meditating activities, it relaxes the body. So which means you release tensions, making the body relaxed, which obviously means you release that tension out of the muscles. I don't know how many of you've heard people when they are stressed, you usually become very tense. A lot of people, that tense is or that stress is focused behind the neck. I don't know if you've noticed it. Maybe you can go look at your parents. Sometimes they'll be very stiff in the shoulders, behind the neck. All right. And stress can cause that. So releasing that tension, all right, also obviously will increase your flexibility. And then what would you say is the most common way to increase your flexibility? We've now said exercising, dancing, a lot of physical activities. But what is the one that all of us use when we go exercise, play a sport? There's something that we do before and after.
Stretching.
Stretching, thank you. All right, so stretching obviously increases our flexibility. We would not do it just for fun. So in order to stretch properly, that's something especially that I've seen in the past, especially in Namibia, even with you know, if you go to sporting federations, look at national teams in the past, not anymore. They've learned the correct way to do it, but they would do the wrong types of stretching at the wrong time, and they would not stretch for long enough. And this causes it causes injuries to actually enhance or increase in frequency of occurrence. So it's very, very important that you know what stretching is, how to stretch properly, and what types of stretching you use. All right. So when we stretch, there are 1, 2, 3, 4. There's about 4, maybe 5 types of stretching that you can do. All right. The first one is dynamic stretching. And then the second one is static stretching. The third one is proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, or you can just call it PNF. And then you have ballistic stretching. All right. And then in those categories, you can have passive stretches, and then you can also have active stretches. But we're not going to go into that. We're not going to go into that much depth. All right. So let's start off with dynamic stretching. So the mistake that we make when we are exercising, especially in Namibia in the past, and it's still happening a lot with a lot of sport teams, and even just you generally going to the gym. I always see people coming to the gym and then they stretch and then they warm up. All right. So it's important that you warm the body up before you stretch the body. Okay. Otherwise, you are putting strain on your muscles while the muscles are not heated up, and that can cause injury. So it's very important that you follow the correct procedures. So dynamic stretching is pretty much defined in the word dynamic, which means movement. All right. So it's stretching through a range of movement. So stretching like swinging your arms forward, backwards, side to side, doing side bends, swinging the legs up and down, doing, I know we've all done high knees, the high knees run, butt kicks. Those are stretching the muscles through or while doing a movement. Okay, so dynamic stretches are always used prior to an activity. So if you're gonna go play a soccer match, before you play the match, right? You're gonna warm the body up, and then the type of stretching you want to do is dynamic stretching. So we do not want to do static stretching. That is the one that we always get wrong and we try and do first. Okay. Then once you go into the activity, if you did static stretching, it means you relax the muscle too much. So for the movement that is required in a soccer match, you're gonna get muscle cramps and muscle pulls, and then that's how you get injuries. So very, very important. Before you exercise, we always do dynamic first. What is dynamic? Stretching through a range of movement while you are moving. Okay, examples: swinging your arms, rolling your neck, your ankles, doing leg swings, bending the torso, or making circles with your hips. Okay, this is a movement, continuous movement, and that is very good for prior to activities. I hope we are together with that. Okay, and then the second one is static stretching. Okay, so static, obviously, also once again, the definition lies within the name or the term static, which means it's still, it does not involve a movement. So literally, this is holding or touching your toes, right? When you stretch your hamstrings, when you touch your toes, you bend down and you hold it there. That would be a static stretch. So you stretch, you do a movement and you hold it in a position. So if I extend my arms into the air and I keep it there, it's a static stretch. When I pull my leg up behind against my bum and I hold it there, static. When I sit on my bum and I reach for my toes and I keep on touching my toes, then it's static. So the mistake that we've done in the past here, and some people still do it, they always do static stretching prior to events, and then they are more injury prone once they are in that specific activity or match or whatever the case might be. So static stretches is when you hold a stretch for about 20 to 30 seconds. Okay, the only way you can do a static stretch properly is if you hold the stretch for the correct amount of time, which is the minimum is 20, maximum is 30 seconds on each hold. All right. And then a static stretch should never be stretched, or you should never overstretch, which means if your hands or if your fingertips don't reach your toes and your muscles are already paining, you stop until you only stretch to the point where your muscle pulls and you hold it. Okay. As time progresses, weeks or months, you will realize that your fingertips would obviously go closer to your toes until you are able to hold your toes, which means you've become flexible. Okay, and very, very important, do not do it prior to an activity, only after an activity. So after we've done our warm down, then we do static stretching. So if we were in a very intense activity, like playing a rugby match, after the match is done, we would go for a short or a slow jog just to decrease our heart rate. Once our heart rate has settled, then you would commence with your static stretches. Okay. For now, the definition, types, and those things, when it should happen, for what duration do you keep every stretch, that would be important for test and exam, but we will also do it practically, even if we have to do it in classroom, where we will go through different types of stretches so that you can just get an idea on proper types of stretches that you can use. in your activities. Okay, so oh, the one thing that I forgot about the dynamic was just the duration. So for dynamic stretches, remember it's movement. So if we swing our arms, we need to swing our arms for a minimum of at least 15 seconds. So 10 to 15 seconds, that would be sufficient for a dynamic stretch. All right. Then when you go into our third stretch, it's the ballistic stretch. Okay, so this one is not important. The only reason they've given this one a name is because people, we needed to identify and give a name to a stretch that most of us do, which is wrong. So this is the type of stretch that we never use. We don't want to use it. You're gonna injure your muscles more. All right. So a ballistic stretch is when you are bouncing through a movement. All right. I've seen so many times where people, when you stand up, you spread your legs and then you do that toe touches where you go front, middle, back. I don't know if you've done that before. So you bounce, you touch the ground in front, touch the ground in the middle, touch the ground in between your legs at the back. Okay, that is the wrong way of stretching. We don't want to encourage that. You actually don't increase your flexibility. You just make yourself more injury prone. All right, that's how you damage your muscles. So this type of stretching is just listed so that we know it's a no-go. We don't ever do it. Any type of movement where we bounce, like pulling your arms in a bouncy movement, those things we do not want to do. All right. Then the fourth and final one is proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, also abbreviated as PNF. So you don't have to remember the whole term. You can, if you write it in a test or exams, you can just call it PNF. That would be good enough. Okay. So this is actually it's not a common form of stretching for the common person. This is more specialized stretching. So these are the types of stretches they would use if you go see a biokineticist or a physiotherapist and your goal is to become very flexible. It's the best way or the quickest way to become flexible, all right? But it needs to be done correctly and you need to be helped by someone who understands how to do the stretching properly without actually hurting the person's muscle. Okay, so what proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation pretty much is, it has the facilitation part in the word, which means it's a facilitated stretch. So it's something that it's a type of stretching that can only happen once there's another person helping you. Okay, so literally someone pulling your leg over to the point where it pulls, and then there's a controlled, there's a part where they say active control and relaxation. Okay, so then the physiotherapist or your partner at the rugby or the soccer, under guidance of a coach that knows how to do it, they would say, okay, pull till where it stretches, and you hold it there for 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, the person going through the stretch will try and contract against the other person's resistance for 10 seconds. And then after that, they'll relax, put the leg down, and then they'll go up again. The first thing you'll realize on your first attempt for those stretches, after the second elevation, you'll already be able to increase your range of movement. And then you go through that. Then you go through that process for a number of times, maybe for 1 or 2 weeks, and it's a very, very quick way to become flexible. This is also a type of stretching that is used by if you look at sports like gymnastics, for instance, gymnasts would do this a lot, and even the ballerinas, because it's a sport where flexibility is key. All right, it's an aesthetic activity, so your movement needs to be very gracious. The lining of your movements, your legs, the way you point your hands, your toes, it needs to be exceptional. So these athletes usually would go to a professional to try and do PNF stretching to get them or to enhance their flexibility. Okay, so when you look at influences of flexibility, I think stretching, well, I know stretching is probably the most common and the most effective way of becoming flexible. All that you need to remember now is you need to be able to remember those 4 types of stretching, and give examples on how to do it properly, when to do it, and for what is the time limit on each. If I do static stretching, do I only stretch do I hold a stretch for 5 seconds, 10 seconds? What is the correct time? Like we said, 20 to 30 seconds, that would be sufficient. Dynamic, 15 seconds or 10 to 15 seconds, that would be efficient. PNF, very good form of stretching, probably the one that is the most effective and quickest when you look at time. However, you need to do it with a partner and someone who is experienced. Ballistic stretching, all that you need to write there is do not do it. Okay? Dangerous stretching hurts the body, hurts the muscles. So we try and avoid it at all costs. Okay, and then other influences of flexibility, we've already mentioned exercising, other active forms of activity like dancing, for instance, because when we are dancing, we are going through different range of movements, right? Arms are up, hips are here, hips are there. The girls, they are twerking. I don't know what the guys are doing, but there's a lot of movements, and obviously that's gonna increase your flexibility. But let's look at more natural types of influences of flexibility. What would you say? What can you think of? What makes a person more flexible? That has nothing to do with physical activity or exercising. Is there anyone that want to try? Okay, let me ask you this. What do you think? Do you think gender has an influence on flexibility? Or who do you think is more flexible, males or females?
Males.
Males, why do you say males?
Because males can do most inappropriate and appropriate stuff that ladies can't do.
Okay. Is there any lady that agrees with the comment? Okay, so let's continue. Thank you for answering. There's no wrong answers, but there's always sometimes there's just answers that are not right. Let's call it that. All right. Okay, so for a lot of people it makes sense. I think because males are more active, usually more active. They more muscular, so they should be more flexible, especially after the other influences that we just mentioned, exercising. Males exercise more than females. All right, but the truth is females are actually naturally more flexible than males. They will always be more flexible. The reason for this is a male is naturally more muscular. So when you have more muscles, what does that mean? Remember the definition of flexibility, we said it's the amount, right? Or the amount of range of movement around the joint. So when we are muscular, there's more meat surrounding our joints. Have you seen those bodybuilders? They can't even put their hands in their pockets or scratch their bum, okay? Because there's tissue which restricts movement. So because males are, you don't necessarily need to be a bodybuilder, but males are just generally more muscular naturally. So that restricts the movement around the joints. Females are built more finer, right? They have less muscles, which means there's more space around the joints for movement. Okay, another natural aspect of a female is in the linings. When you look at the lower body, it would be in the lining of the hips. All right, so males and females' hips are not made the same. So males' hips, when you look at the sockets where the legs join, right? The hip sockets. When you look at male sockets, they face more to the bottom, like towards the birth process. They need to carry a baby and then give birth to that baby. So they require more space. But because they have a more open hip, obviously now that's going to allow for a larger range of movement. So if you are standing up and you try and lift your leg laterally to the side, okay, like you are splitting, females would naturally be able to lift their leg much higher to the side because of the lining of the hips. I hope that makes sense. So a natural influence of flexibility is literally just your gender. So females are considered to be more flexible than males. Okay. Other things that influences our flexibility. Okay, before I continue, there's a question, what is the duration of PNF? So like I mentioned, it's usually 10 seconds holds. So you stretch for 10 seconds and hold, you contract for 10 seconds, and then you relax for 10 seconds. Then you've completed one repetition. So the total amount of time is 30 seconds, but it's 3 different actions in one stretch. All right. I lift my leg up towards my head, keep it where it starts to pull for 10 seconds. And then I contract against the resistance for 10 seconds. And then I relax and put my leg down for 10 seconds. Then I've done one repetition. On the second repetition, I'll be able to lift my leg even higher and keep it there for 10 seconds, contract against the resistance for 10 seconds, and then relax for 10 seconds. All right, so then they will usually do it for about 5 repetitions on the one leg and then the other leg. So that would be the duration on a PNF stretch. Okay, so yeah, to continue, gender, if you get a question on what influences our flexibility, you can say stretching, or what enhances our flexibility, stretching, but then you can also mention that gender also affects our flexibility. So females are more flexible than males because of this and that reason. All right, what other things are there that can influence how flexible we are? Like for instance, if we said exercising increases it, so inactivity, would you also say, decreases it, right? So when you're not active, obviously you are not very mobile. Same thing happens when we get older, right? The less activity we do, the less flexible we become. So another influencer would be weight. You know, a skinny person compared to an obese person, obviously the skinny person is going to be more flexible than the obese. Why? Similar to the reasons we gave to the gender, right? So when we have more weight in our bodies, it also means there's more fat surrounding our joints, which decreases the range of movement around the joint. So our weight has an influence on our flexibility. Okay. Another one would be your age. So young people compared to older people, who is more flexible? I think that's pretty obvious. Young people would be more flexible. The older we get, the less flexible we get, depending on our activity rates. Sometimes you can find even 80-year-olds, 70-year-olds who are still very active. And then they are also flexible, not as flexible as the young person, but because they have been active throughout their lives, they usually increase or maintain their flexibility at a good rate. But generally, age has an influence on the way our body moves and also on our flexibility. Okay. Which one did I now miss? Another one would be the time of day. Yes. So what do you let me quickly ask, if you look at a whole day from the morning to the evening, when are you at your most flexible, especially in Namibia? Is it in the mornings, in the, I don't know, in noon, afternoons? What would you say, when is the body more flexible in a day?
Morning.
Why? Why would you say so? Because the body is now rested or what? Okay, everyone, don't worry. Most people, like, that's the answer that I usually expect. Most people will say the morning, but the truth is, like, just think about you in the morning. What is the first thing that you do when you wake up? You stretch, isn't it? You yawn. We yawn and we stretch out our arms and then we yawn, isn't it? Okay, so in the morning we are actually at our least flexible, right? Because why? When you go to bed in the evening, you don't do any activity. Your body is curled up in one position or two positions, and you are sleeping for 8 hours in that one position. So when you wake up in the morning, your body didn't do any activity. Okay, it just rested. So which means that is the reason why we wake up and we stretch and we yawn. All right, it's our body's natural instinct to do that. Okay, so in the mornings we are usually at our least flexible, right? And then your day starts. Then you start becoming active. You start moving around, washing yourself, brushing teeth, eating, etc., etc. And then your day goes on, right? And then you start moving, go to campus, walk from class to class. So as your activity level picks up, obviously the body also heats up, the muscle heats up, and you become more flexible. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So the time of day that we are at our most flexible is usually between 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock during the day. Okay? Not just because of our activity level, but in our country. Not today. Today we have nice clouds and rain, but we have a lot of natural heat from the sun, right? We go over 30, 35 degrees Celsius here. So when the sun is shining on us, even our body heats up, our muscle heats up. So we don't heat it up ourselves by walking and exercising, but the sun, the heat of the weather conditions naturally heats our body, making our muscles more elastic. Does that make sense?
What's the time again?
Between 12 to 2 o'clock during the day is when we are at our most flexible. All right. Okay, so those are some of the main things that would influence our flexibility. If you think about other things, you can go to specific types of activities like yoga, Pilates, Zumba, doing aerobics in the gym, for instance. Those are all influences of flexibility, which can enhance it. And then we also have the negative one that can decrease it, right? So then we'll go look at inactivity, etc., etc. Okay, I think we've covered most of what we needed to know for flexibility. Okay, so main things, just to recap: define flexibility. It's the amount of range of movement around the joint, and it's the graceful movement that a person can accomplish around a joint. So your major joint, what is our major joints? Major joints would be our shoulder joint and then also our hip joints, all right? So they usually have the most range of movement. Okay, and then stretching is the most common. We need to know the types of stretching. We said, when do you do dynamics? When do you do static, PNF? And then ballistic, do you do it or don't you do it? Important to know that, define that, and then give examples on the types of movements you can do, and then the time frame for the durations of those specific stretches. We have a hand up. You can ask your question. Kururu. I'm not gonna. You can ask your question. How do you pronounce your name? Okay. All right. Yes. Okay, and then just quickly to cover warm-ups, because stretching and warm-up, not stretching, flexibility and proper warm-ups and warm-downs.
Dr. 2 months. Oh, planet.
Okay, so I think we all know what a warm-up is, right? Warm-up usually takes place prior to an activity. It's something that we do similar to stretching. It's something that we do to prevent or to decrease the risk of injury. So where prior to going into a match or playing a game, whatever it might be, in your physical education class, we want our learners to warm the body up, right? Before we stretch and before we go into the main activity. So the reason we warm up, do warm-ups, is to increase our body's temperature. Like we've said, then we are elongating our muscles, or we are relaxing, not relaxing, we're heating up our muscles, making it more stretchable or elastic. Okay, that's the first thing. We increase our heart rate. Obviously, for obvious reasons, when we increase our activity, our heart needs to produce the blood, right? Which carries oxygen to the different muscles in the body where it will be required. All right, so we do that gradually, increasing the heart rate and the amount of oxygen we are able to supply the body with. Once you've heated up the body, then we go into stretching. So that part we call warm-up. That would be how you define warm-ups and why we do warm-ups, all right? Generally, a warm-up can be done depending on the activity that you do, but generally a warm-up can be done for about 20 to 30 minutes prior to a sporting event. So for soccer, if you are going to play a match, right, that lasts 90 minutes, your warm-up at least needs to happen for about 20 to 30 minutes prior to the match. Okay, and then very important for warm-ups, to make it more effective, you need to have specific or activity-specific warm-ups. So don't just do random warm-ups, random stretching that has nothing to do with the movements that you'll be doing in basketball, right? So if I'm a basketball player and I'm gonna go do soccer stretching or stretching for swimming, you know, that would be required for a swimmer, then it's pointless, okay? So when we do our warm-ups, if there's a lot of jumping involved in a basketball match, then in my warm-ups, I'm gonna do a lot of explosive movements, all right? To get the body, the lower body, ready for the type of explosiveness it will require within the match. So yes, I will do jogging, slow jogging, to try and increase the heart rate, get the muscles heated up. But then I'll also include maybe sumo squats, which is explosive sumo squats, which is squat jumps. So you squat, and then when you get to the top, you have a little jump, all right? Or you do alternate lunges, for instance, where you lunge to the right and then jump up, left, jump up, right, jump up, left. Okay, that would be more specific to the sport that you are going to play. I hope that that makes sense. So, for instance, in rugby is a contact sport, right? But it involves, there's aerobic, anaerobic things, but there's also a lot of physical contact. So if we don't prepare the body in our warm-ups for physical contact, we risk getting injured when you just go into a match and now you running into people, getting tackled, then your body's not used to it. So it's like it goes into shock and you can get hurt much easier. So for instance, in a rugby warm-up, you'll do all the common warm-ups like jogging, there's jumping involved in rugby, so you'll also do a few jumping activities. There's a lot of speed, so you'll do quick bursts of speeds, and then you'll get a partner and you'll hit each other on the shoulder, like, bump into each other, just to get the body used to physical contact prior or before you go into a match. I hope that that makes sense. So it's very important to be specific, like I've said in class, I think in the first lesson, I said sport in general and physical education have become it's become a scientific study. Okay, so it's the way the human body acts and works while doing exercise is very important, and we've gotten to the point where we know how to train athletes specific to the sport that they play. Okay, so in order to your warm-up also needs to be specific to the activity that you'll do today in your physical education class. So if we're going to do basketball, the warm-up should be specific to the movements in a basketball match. If it's netball, specific to that. Netball is a lot of shuffling, so you'll do shuffling in your warm-ups as well. It's also, it involves jumping, using the hands and arms, so throwing. So that's very important. Yeah. Okay, and then we get to warm downs. This will be the last part, I think, for today. Then we get to warm downs. So warm downs is now you've played this match or you've done the activity. All the learners played this game that you've given them now. So now you need to decrease, not systematically, gradually. You need to decrease the heart rate again, right? So you don't just stop and stretch. So you're gonna go for a short jog, slow jog. So then you're gonna try and slow the jog down into a walk, and that's how you gradually decrease the heart rate, get the temperature of the body down a little bit, and then you're gonna do your static stretching where you hold stretches while the body is still nice and heated up, and that's how you become flexible for the next match or next activity, whatever the case might be. Okay, so warm-ups, warm-downs, very important. You start your activity with a warm-up, then stretch, main activity, warm down, then stretch. That is the general golden rule of any physical activities. And that is also where I will close today's lesson. All right, we've got about, I think we've got about 5 weeks left before the examination. Even though it seems impossible, but like I told you guys in the beginning, the course outline is actually not that long. So we might finish in the next 2 to 3 weeks with our course outline. Okay. There was another question, sir, before you finish, I have a quick question. The online test, is it for us?
That's on LMS.
It's for you. What on the document I gave you in the first week, I said your test will be in the week of the 24th. So which means for you guys, because you have a Monday class, your test has already been open since 6 o'clock this morning. All right, please, I don't know, it's Serenity on the call. I don't think so. Anyways, just make sure I'm sure you have a WhatsApp group. Make sure that you please just tell everyone that the test is open so you can go. You only have one attempt, like I've said in the beginning of this class, and it's 45 minutes long. So make sure that you have good internet connection or a stable connection, and then it's all multiple choice questions, true and false, monkey puzzle, or drop downs. So it's it's really not difficult. So all of you should pass. There might be one or two questions that would be unfamiliar to you, but actually not after today's class. So, but it's a lot of it. It's also just general knowledge, you know, thinking about. It opened at 6 this morning. I think it closes. Where are we? Closes tomorrow or Wednesday at 6 a.m. So you've got 48 hours to complete it. One attempt, 45 minutes, then you are done with your test one. The duration for the static question, there's a question about static stretching. The duration for static is 20 to 30 seconds. Hold for 20 to 30 seconds. For dynamic, it's 10 to 15 seconds. Who's asked something? That's for PHEPJ. Are we having a Zoom class or face-to-face? Is that for the 3 o'clock class? You will not have a face-to-face class. That's why I sent you guys the link as well. This lesson will also be uploaded onto LMS, so everyone can go listen to it again. So, sorry that I didn't use the slides. I don't know. It's just been loading though. It's still loading my slides. So when I click share it, I don't know what's happening. Okay. You'll also, I think I can't remember whether I know I did post that unit 1. Okay, so I've I've started editing the unit 1 in anyway. So I've been throwing in this, like the flexibility part, the muscular strength, endurance, what is the other one? Aerobic, all those things. So the initial one that I gave you, that slide, it's now grown. I've increased the content for that. So as soon as I've gotten to, I think, the second point of the second unit, then I will close it off and then I'll repost it. Maybe I'll call it unit 1 and 2 or something like that. So just make sure that you go on LMS every now and then. I would probably also share it with your class rep Serenity so that she can also share it on the group, WhatsApp group, so that you have it. So give us a scope for the examination. So you are first year, so you don't know the rules. So the rule at IUM, unfortunately, we are not allowed to give scopes. I don't know why, but we are not allowed to do it. So if we are caught giving a scope for the examinations, then we can get into trouble, unfortunately. But I can always direct you in certain avenues. But also when I give class, I always tell you, you know, this is very important, or this usually is a common, or usually this is a common question in the examinations. So you take note of those things, then you should be fine. Your CA1 marks, I will upload it as soon as I'm done. You guys are, only this class is 300 plus, and then the other group is also 300 plus. And then there's one group which is small. So it takes a lot of time uploading mocks and even mocking takes some time.
Yeah.
Okay, that is where I close off. If there's no more questions, you must enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for joining the lesson. I will see you next week. And good luck with the test. Goodbye.
What time itu kelas ada umum? Oh, aku tuh tidak bayar. Anu baru yang mau.
For those of you, you can leave. Those of you that want to, you can leave. For those of you that didn't present yet, you can present. When will I be on campus again? But it's fine. You can present next week. It's not a problem. As long as if I have your paper when you handed it in, then it's fine. So you can present next week after our lesson. So we'll try and finish earlier our lesson, and then I think there should be probably 3 or 4 groups that still needs to present. So the test, the last 3 questions.
Project.
Don't have it in your notes. All of those questions in that test is general knowledge. You must just think about the activities. The answers are given to you there. So just look at the ones that make most sense. I will be sharing the notes. You have unit 1. You can memorize that one so long. Okay, if there's no more questions, I'm going to end the session right here. Thank you and good day. I mean, goodbye.
Bye.